Hello, hello, welcome again. So today I want to reflect some more. Seeing the shirt that I'm wearing, it's a bit of a map to me. Has the shapes of a map, but either way, want to reflect a bit, try to get a bit an insight on like the map of the field of consciousness in which we actually live. How we actually also move through this consciously or unconsciously. Maybe what makes us be drawn into certain areas or certain fields. Feel it ties in with a lot of previous videos, things like our values and seeing these things like these spider webs and stuff like that as well. These webs of culture, values, all trying to connect a lot of these things. So I feel like I want to start here with our own values again, looking at that process as well. Certainly feel this value of loyalty again. The question, loyal to what? Can be loyal to different things. I'm tying it in with, for myself, with love, self-love, loving myself. I want to love myself. How do we actually do that? I want to be loyal to my own self-love, to my freedom, to truth. Truth is a big key in this as well, to finding that true love. Being loyal to truth means to me being loyal to staying open to truth so it can be revealed, being open to revealing the lies that we tell ourselves, especially other people's lies. We can also learn to see through that, but I think a lot of that actually also comes from going through that process ourselves, becoming conscious of ourselves. And that's why in a way, I wanted to start this. I thought about this during my walk as well. Some years ago, for myself, I made this big decision in my life where I chose myself, chose I'm going to love myself, and from there became loyal to truth as well, being truthful with myself. That's part of being loving to myself. If I keep repeating lies to myself, this is not love. Telling someone else lies, it's interesting because it already brings me to comfort. Thing Sometimes we can see comfortable lies as loving, but is this truly loving? It's a different form, I would say, and certainly I want to outgrow that. I want to grow into a higher form, or truer form of love, one that is aligned in truth. Choosing that, choosing the discomfort that comes with that. I want to tie this in a bit with our own environments, our maps, the field, mapping the field. A lot of people are actually really loyal in our society, I would say, to comfort, feeling comfortable, pleasure. And that often unconsciously actually gets them entangled in some kind of webs where they can feel comfortable, where they can have that sort of a pleasure, that comfort, tying it in with that safety net. They need to feel safe to feel comfortable. And there is a big difference in whether we actually care for truth. Am I let's look at ourselves and how we can actually this process I was talking about lying to ourselves. Why do we even do that? I also came to this moment in my life years ago where I realized there are all these things in my life that I lied to myself, and I believe these lies for some reason. But why? And well, those lies actually often are, you could even call it maybe a survival strategy as well, but they're comfortable lies, the things we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel comfortable in our current situation, in our life that we are living, and then we can continue the life and remain having fun, that pleasure, and feel comfortable. But is that it's also, I'm tying this in with how building something on lies is not a stable foundation. Things can happen in our life externally that suddenly then reveals like, um, this so-called safety I was feeling isn't really actually any form of safety. I was just imagining it. I was believing that I feel safe. Becoming aware of this process is often also a key towards us actually finding that within ourselves, that our own sense of safety, detaching that from external environments. I had an interesting encounter yesterday with a Jehovah's Witness, and it inspired me as well in the sense of feeling that web of entanglement I was talking about and seeing how these things work gave me a real life example. And now I'm using this to reflect on this and see these kind of dynamics and revealing them, and want to reflect on them so we can become more consciously aware what actually, these questions of what actually gets us trapped. Why can we fall in these traps? Often that happens unconsciously, but it comes from these things like these people bring a sort of a field, and that field can certainly bring comfort. I would also say the people who are living in that field, they are actually comfortable in that field. It also, to me, I see the image of like people all leaning on each other and holding up the tent like that. A different image than what I actually want to create, something that is stable in itself, where if you then take away the people, the tent doesn't collapse. If all these people are leaning on each other, notice as well that as long as they can lean on each other, as long as they can reinforce each other's beliefs, and they all imagine this is true, it reinforces their own belief and they feel safe in that field. They're generating their own field in some way, but it's not necessarily stable because it's not built on real truth. But it can still give that sensation of love, of true connection, or even though that's not necessarily a true connection or safety. The thing is, when you start to, or when people start to collapse in this field, then the whole field eventually starts to come down. And that actually also made me think about our times we are living in, and I feel we are navigating and going to be navigating much more of that, where all, in a way, let's say it as, I feel a general movement to where truth is being revealed, and so things are coming to the surface, and so that means there is some kind of pressure being put on all these fields, all these different webs, all these different cults, all these different organizations, all our different systems within the systems. Everything is coming under pressure. It's a sort of a pressure test. And that actually reveals what has a proper foundation. You can also see it as a storm that moves through the forest, and it reveals which trees are actually stable, which are firmly rooted, which are rotten. The storm reveals this. The damage appears. The trees collapse. Some remain standing. What remains standing? Those who are built on truth. And so I feel as we are moving through this storm, through these energies, through this sort of a pressure, the systems, the organizations, these groups that are built on lies, to put it very simply, they will start to collapse. But at the same time, probably fight for their survival and to start to do all kind of crazy tricks to reinforce their stability. And but this actually sets things in motion to which will make the collapse even greater. I was also thinking in a form of people maybe in one net, in one web, finding their safety there, but something happens to this and suddenly they don't feel safe again. They're like refugees. They're panicking at that state. But then they go. That's here the point of this video that I mostly want to make. When we are not conscious, a lot of these people, they're gonna get caught in the best next thing that gives them that comfort, that gives them that sense of safety. They find something. It's like someone drowning in the storm and they find the nearest thing which can help them um, float, at least temporarily, so they are saved from that drowning feeling. Now what I want to say here is we can actually also learn to swim ourselves, and then we don't need to attach to this field, to this field. We can actually build within this storm, we can actually remain standing as this firm tree ourselves. Also, just this is a requirement, I would say, to be able to build these structures that are built in truth, stable in itself, whole in itself, not needing others. What makes something the truth? A lot of people think, everyone believes this, so it is truth. This is wrong. This is wrong. Saw a very interesting dynamic with this person yesterday as well. He seemed to point that the Bible is truth, but I kept asking these questions as how do we actually know this is truth? The thing is, I'm much more living this as well, um, and pointing at the process of us discovering truth within ourselves, how to constantly asking these questions, and from there asking questions, and actually also the experience of life itself, letting life teach us, getting caught in these webs but remaining conscious and present, discovering ourselves through that, and then figuring out how did I actually get caught in this. This is the same as figuring this out is the way how to actually also free ourselves. When we can make that change within ourselves, when we can suddenly, well, an example is, oh, I find my safety within this group of people, within this group of friends, within this cult, within this religion. Freeing yourselves from that, being able to stand on your own feet through the transformational process of finding that security within ourselves. But that is really what are we truly aligned with. I feel a lot of people don't want this, are not interested in this. And that's fine by me. But why do I choose this? Is also coming from the realization being entangled in a web. It's an analogy that came earlier was also, it's very much like you're stepping into or onto a ship with that collective, that group of people, meaning you're tying up your own fate with the fate of that group, with the fate of that ship. A lot of people step into these boats unconsciously, looking for a better life. It actually makes me think a lot about these refugees taking a trip in these boats, but these boats, they can sink. Where are they actually taking you? What is freedom? And freedom, that process of actually becoming conscious, true freedom comes from actually also feeling the burden, which doesn't necessarily have to be a burden. I certainly recognize my own process of how it doesn't feel as much as a burden anymore. I feel much freer in this as well, freer in the freedom. But a burden often comes from seeing we are free in our choices. The choices we make are also very much aligned with what are our true values. So that has to be discovered. To find this true freedom, we have to go through that process of questioning these values and finding our own truth within. Love plays a big role in this as well. Makes me think often also from my own experiences how sometimes I stepped into a certain dynamic, a web, people, groups of people, relationship, whatever, from a feeling of love, but then suddenly also discovering, well, actually, I'm betraying myself here, not fully loving. This is a different form of love, and through growing into that higher form, it's allowing me to actually step away from that. I have to be fully honest with myself, live in that truth, being loyal in that. That often also meant walking alone, and that is, well, rather uncomfortable for most people. I've met a lot of people who then, it's like they just don't want to do that because that would be too uncomfortable. But again, as you're walking it, you learn how to become comfortable in that. At least I have truth. And it's also, the thing is, because I still feel this longing, I want to connect with people, but I want to connect through truth, to real love, real connection. But it's not letting that longing, or actually putting that longing into the proper form. When I reflect back on my own experiences as well, this longing could actually bring me into stepping into environments, meeting people, becoming friends with them. But then I also start to recognize this is not fully what I truly want. So being loyal to that process, and actually, I want more coming from love, not necessarily from neediness, but choosing that wholeness. Now, I do want to maybe circle back a bit to these dynamics as well, which have been revealed a lot, or it reminded me this conversation with this man. Like we can observe this whole dynamic from like as if he tried to get me into or stepping into his field of consciousness, his web. Don't necessarily have to call it trapped or whatever. It's a bit like, oh, join my cult. But it's interesting to also see this in their reality. They are coming from their good intentions. They call it love, they call it peace. But and it's very interesting. People talk about God, they talk about peace, but what is their energy actually truly saying? And I was actually reflecting this back to him, maybe trying to tell him that this energy is actually not peaceful. He's forcing these things in me. He's trying to capture me or something, and that doesn't work. But it revealed to me how we can get captured by this, and that depends on who are we, what are our values. If I felt he came, for example, with an energy of authority, but I have, through my own process, I've really grown in my own authority. So I do not let myself, I do not hand over my power to this. When you have not gone through this deep process yourself and not really standing in your power, you might give in to this authority and thus go along with that story, believe what he is saying, and join that, maybe unconsciously even. There were a lot of these things, or gaslighting can be tactics, trying to trap you. It's all about, are you actually secure in yourself? Are you actually finding your own power, having your own truth? It was also very interesting because, and the thing to me about truth is, truth does not fear any questions. If it's a real truth, you can question. How do we even find truth? To me, that is really like, well, you have to question. Also, the big question: how can we finally come together? I see that as well. How can we become peaceful together? Well, maybe we have to sit around the table, have a real mature debate, not in a fighting sense, but let's listen to each other, truly listen, truly ask each other questions. Just in like that alchemical processes I have talked about in other videos, doing this with other people, and in that form then unifying through finding the common ground, truth. I noticed also how this person was very stubborn in, the Bible is truth, my God is truth, you are wrong. And when they are in this consciousness, this actually made a lot of sense to me. This is why we have these big conflicts in the world. People are very stubborn in their consciousness, not willing to let go of their own ego attachment to their own beliefs. Creating images or ideas of creating world peace through forcing everyone to join their cult. This is, to me, that's a joke. You can never force peace. We can never attain peace through forcing peace. That would be a peace in that form of this tent where everyone supports each other, holds each other, like you have to be peaceful now. It was a lot in that energy as well. I am the teacher. I say what is right. The Bible is a teacher, the Bible, but how it leaves no room for maturing. And this is what we actually need. This process of free. How do we achieve world freedom through, how do we achieve world peace? We as individuals have to step up and actually go through that internal process of finding our own truth, living that truth, being loyal to it, is truly stepping up for that, in our own truth. Not hide behind some Bible, not hide behind some books, not hide behind your web of groups of people. That's the beauty of being able to walk alone, stand in your own truth. But this is real strength. It also takes real strength. You have to find this within yourself to be able to do that. But I feel this, if we are able to do this, if we are choosing this, this is the only way I would say we can actually truly be free, truly live in love, truly live in peace. And it also frees us from getting entangled in this whole mess the world is going through. Because as I said before, this, like, you can, if you remain unconscious, you're gonna end up in some kinds of ship, and a lot of these ships are going to sink or crash, or the ship also gets funny with the image of when things start to feel unstable. I think we can all agree life itself is becoming, or the times or society is starting to feel much less secure than before, and we are entering chaotic times. And so this puts a lot of pressure on a lot of things, and the image of rats fleeing the ship, sometimes that is exactly what makes the ship sink. And people being in that state of panic, then joining or climbing onto another ship can actually bring down that ship as well. These people who feel like drowning, trying to attach themselves to anything that gives them security. This is also important for us if we go through this process, to be aware of this, be aware of this field, be aware of what is going on, be aware of who wants to attach to us. Not saying we cannot help people, but this kind of savior, do I need to save someone? If we want freedom, we have to release that. That doesn't mean you cannot help someone. My approach to this is, you learn to swim. And maybe just like with children, we teach them to swim with some a floaty or something like that. I'm not sure what to call it. You can guide them into learning to swim, instead of these kind of institutions or organizations of like, hand over all your power to me and I will save you. We're gonna see a lot of this, but the choice is ours. So where we end up is the consequence of those choices we make. And there we can choose to see this, or choose comfort and put the blinders on. So already almost 30 minutes in, so I'm gonna end it here, leave it here. Have a good one.